I have a lot of great people on this show, whether they be CNN contributors. John Fogelsang is going to be joining us on the show tomorrow. John Lemon does my show all the time. I've met a lot of great people in the industry. And the lovely lady we have on the show right now, I've been watching her on television. Her commentary is fantastic. She's a former Fox News and CNBC contributor. And boy, I love it when she goes after Scott Jennings and they go at it. I think she just also the author of Salty Politics newsletter on Substack. Julie Roginsky joining us right now on the show. Julie, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for being here. How are you?
Thanks so much for having me. I'm great.
Good to see you. Boy, there's a lot to talk about in a short period of time. What is your first take on this $400 million jet from Qatar that Donald Trump is accepting as a gift? What do you make of this story?
I mean, are we even pretending it's anything other than graft? I mean, look, Qatar is the 55th largest economy in the world. We're number one. Why are we taking gifts from Qatar for an American iconic presidential plane? I mean, this is something that Boeing has always made, an American company. This is not how you bring business back to America. It's not making America great again. But more importantly than that, look, Qatar is not particularly, this is not Great Britain or Canada, right, or people who used to be our friends. This is a country that still harbors Hamas terrorists, including one that is wanted by the Justice Department here. Apparently, the president's not trading away extradition for him to the United States, despite the fact there was a warrant out for his arrest that was issued last year by the Justice Department. They've been harboring Hamas for years and years and years. They are sometimes with the Houthis, sometimes not with the Houthis. These are not our friends. This is a transactional relationship. The United States gets nothing out of it. Donald Trump does. He gets to fly around in a really fancy $400 billion plane for the rest of his life. But the rest of us get nothing other than God knows what he sold out to Qatar in order to get this little bauble for himself.
And Julie, I agree with you. I wanted to ask you about that because just last week he announced he's building a $5.5 billion golf course in Qatar. And if you recall, when 4 American soldiers lost their lives, he decided not to honor them when their bodies came back, and he was hanging out with live people, and that's run, as you know, by the Saudis.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, this has been in the works probably for a while, and then they say, "Oh, we've been open and honest about this whole thing." No, they haven't, because last I checked, it was a confidential source that told ABC about it, so they were forced to admit it.
Well, they have been open and honest about the fact that they're just here for the graft. I mean, they just are. And if you want to blame somebody for it, blame John Roberts, because he has said, along with 6 of the 3 of them were Trump appointees, but 6 total of the very conservative right-wing justices on the Supreme Court said that anything Donald Trump does in his capacity as president, and that is very broadly defined, is legal. So Donald Trump can very much out in the open say, you know what? I'm getting a $1 billion complex in Doha, or wherever they're building this newest Trump tower / resort. I'm getting a $400 billion plane. I'm getting whatever money that Qatar or anybody else is sending through his crypto company. I'm getting all of that for free. And by the way, Steve Witkoff, the guy who apparently negotiated a lot of these deals, Qatar bailed his company out. Now, one of his sons runs World Business Financial, which is the company that Donald Trump runs most of his crypto stuff through, and 80% of which is owned by the Trump family. Mm-hmm. So, he could say all of that and it would be fine because there's nothing anybody can do about it. Apparently, the emoluments clause doesn't matter. The Constitution very clearly says that he cannot take 1 penny in foreign gifts without approval of Congress. Congress will probably give it to him if he asks for it because they're totally acquiescent. He hasn't bothered. But if he did, I'm sure he'd get it. And so, if you're Donald Trump, why would you hide this? I mean, he's there for the grift, and the president is allowed to do it because the Supreme Court said there's no problem with him doing it.
Yeah. I'm wondering, Julie, because, you do a lot of these panels and you're on with some people like a Scott Jennings. And, that's why I have no hair. I pulled it out of my head listening to him. And I love it when you go out with him. And I'm wondering, you see these MAGA Republicans like a Scott Jennings, because he's turned into a MAGA Republican now. And maybe not, but maybe he kisses the ring because he wants something. I think he wants to be in office, but that's another story. But when you see these MAGA Republicans curl themselves into a pretzel, like the way Scott Jennings does when it comes to this story, how do you even respond to them? I mean, it's like that, that's what he's going to be doing on CNN this week.
I mean, of course he is. But look, the reality is Scott Jennings, whatever he wants to do with his life it's up to him. I guess he wants to be Mitch McConnell and when he grows up, and he probably will become the next senator from Kentucky, because the more you kiss Trump, suck up to Trump, the more he's going to let you do what you want. And I'm sure he wants somebody like that in the Senate to continue voting to give him all sorts of emoluments that otherwise he should not be getting. But look, I know my history, and I think the one thing I know about history, whether it's Soviet history or German history or the history of the Confederacy or any of these horrible regimes that the world has lived through, at the end, it doesn't end well for the people who espouse it and for the people who support it. It just does not end well. Either
so true.
And even if they themselves, it works out for them, history will not look kindly on them. Their children and their grandchildren will not look kindly on them. I cannot imagine. This is not at all about Scott Jennings. I don't mean this is not at all what I'm suggesting he is. But look at the segregationists from the Jim Crow days. Their children or grandchildren, I'm sure, are embarrassed to be related to them. And ultimately, anybody who endorses this kind of behavior, knowing full well, and they do, I mean, 99% of the ones in Washington and on TV know this is all nonsense. Yeah. They do. Their history's not going to look kindly on them. So,
Yeah. I agree. Julie, on Fox News, you were one of the most sane people they've ever had there, as far as I'm concerned. I'm wondering, and I'm not asking you to dish out any trash on a former employer, but at the same token, after 5 p.m., I can't watch Fox News anymore, Julie. I just can't do it. The Sean Hannitys, the Jesse Waters. I think Tarlov is fantastic, by the way, and there are some talented people there. Okay. But I mean, did you know Pete Hegseth? I mean, you had to.
I did. I knew Pete Hegseth well. So I have to be very careful. I actually was one of the women who sued Fox News and Roger Ailes for sexual harassment, which is why I left. So I have an NDA, and I can't say much, but I can say this: I did know Pete Hegseth. I did know Jeanine Pirro, not just professionally, but socially, both of them. I knew Donald Trump. I knew the Trump sons, the older Trump sons. I mean, all of them came through Fox. I knew Marco Rubio. I mean, I was Jesse Tarlov before Jesse Tarlov was Jesse Tarlov on the 5. So I remember when Marco Rubio announced his presidential race on the 5. I was sitting right next to him when he did that, and he certainly was preaching a very different story about Donald Trump back then. And privately, a lot of these people back then, I haven't spoken to most of them since the first Trump administration, but they know what he's about, but they also understand that they probably wouldn't survive in any other media organization, and that sweet, sweet Fox money pays the mortgage. And so, they've got to say what they've got to say. They've got to do what they've got to do. Everybody's got to hustle, right? So
I will not be asking you if Roger Ailes asked you to twirl. That wasn't on my
even if he did, I could not tell you.
Right. I understand that. And again, getting off the Fox News, but I'll just say this. It just seems like it's a prerequisite that in general, I'll speak in general here, that if you are an alleged woman abuser or just an awful human being, that Donald Trump will want you to work in his administration. And I'm not even saying Fox News. We know that Judge Jeanine just got a gig, but it just seems to me there are so many people in Donald Trump's administration, so many, not all, but a lot of people that have alleged, abusing women, and just horrible things that they've done in their life. And what does that say about where we're at as a country?
I mean, I think more generally, not just about women, but about civil rights generally, about women, about people of color. The pendulum has swung so far out of whack right now, where we're throwing everybody out of the country except for one group that we're allowing in as refugees with open are refugees. And we're not allowing Syrian refugees in. We're not allowing refugees from South America who literally are raped, murdered, and gang violence. We're allowing Afrikaner farmers who feel like the fact that they have to share their land with Black people, which they've never had to do until apartheid collapsed, is suddenly such a chore and such a horrible thing for them that they're now refugees and basically on a pathway to getting citizenship in the United States thanks to Donald Trump. I mean, it is so surreal that this is where we are. As I sit here, I'm in Midtown New York right now, and I'm in somebody's hotel room because I'm about to go to the Webbies. So I has to borrow their computer while they're getting ready. And I'm looking out, and you could see the Statue of Liberty in the harbor because I'm on a very high floor. And just not to get all sappy, but I mean, literally what's written on the Statue of Liberty about giving us your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, the wretched refuse of your teeming shores. I mean, we might as well just chisel that off the Statue of Liberty. Because what we're doing now is we are creating an administration that is banning books written by Maya Angelou. I know by the Cage Bird Sings. I mean, one of the great books of the 20th century by a tremendously talented African-American poet, but we're allowing Mein Kampf by Adolf Hitler to stay in military libraries. I mean, what does that tell you about where we are? I don't care if you're a Democrat or you're a Republican. I don't care who you vote for. But my God, I mean, this is surreal. This is not how normal people think. And the fact that this is how the highest people at our highest levels of government think is just frightening and should be depressing and despondent for all of us.
Julie, you're so right. And you mentioned the Statue of Liberty, and that was kind of my next question to you, where human beings are not able to get due process apparently in this country now, and they could just be sent to an El Salvador high maximum security prison with absolutely no due process at all. So I asked the MAGA Republicans, if you believe this guy Garcia is a gang member, then why wouldn't you allow him in a court of law and let that be proven by prosecution? They don't want to hear it. And I've always said this, and I don't know if you agree or not, but I think Make America Great Again to me always sounded like Make America White Again. That's the way I feel.
Well, look, it's an avatar for everybody, right? Everybody's got their own idea of what American greatness is. And for too many people who support Donald Trump, it is the 1950s when women knew their place and African Americans knew their place and immigrants knew their place, and dad went to work and came home and mom was all dressed up and serving him dinner, like June Cleaver, and the kids were scrubbed and silent until they were spoken to. I mean, this is a world that just doesn't exist anymore, and definitely for good reason. I mean, it worked out really well for some people, but it really did not work out well for most people. Yeah. And that's what we're trying to recreate now, whether it's this whole trad wife movement, whether it's the fact that he is ripping people off the streets who look like they may be here illegally, even though they're not, and sorting it out later. I mean, we're deporting American-born children who are American citizens with their moms and letting that all get sorted out later. We're in the process of deporting Asian immigrants. Had a judge not stepped in, and I'm not even sure if that worked. But this week, or last week, I should say, they were about to deport people from Laos and Vietnam to Libya, a failed state where Doctors Without Borders will not go into their prison system because it is so dangerous, where if you are even lucky enough to survive, you will definitely be raped and beaten and abused. I mean, this is what the United States is doing. We're sending them to some foreign gulag. And it's just, I was born in the former Soviet Union. I had family that went to the real gulag in the Soviet Union. Right. There's a reason why my family fled here. And just to think that this is what this country's become is just terrifying for those of us who know what it's like on the other side and what could be happening soon.
I never thought we would be in the situation we're in, certainly not in our lifetime. I guess you're going to be asked. Days. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy, right? I have to pinch myself and say, is this really reality? Do we really have a man that's accepting a $400 million gift from Qatar? Right. We have a man that's a 34 count felon. You could walk into a fast food restaurant and they would ask you if you're a felon, and they wouldn't hire somebody like Donald Trump. It's just crazy times we're living in. I would imagine, Julie, you're going to be asked this question a lot over the next several years. I know 2028 is a long time away. We got to get through the next 3.5 years in the midterms. I get all that. But with that being said, rising stars in the Democrat Party. I've said to myself, Josh Shapiro, Jasmine Crockett, AOC, to name a few. I don't know about the governor of California, Gavin Newsom. I'm kind of up and down with him. But if the elections were tomorrow, and they're not, a lot can change. But who would be your front runner, and who do you think should be thinking about running for president in 2028?
That's a good question. I think J.B. Pritzker should take a serious look at it. He's been great. Look, I just want a fighter. And what I'm so frustrated about, and I bet you are too, and I bet you your listeners are too, is how little fight our current leaders have. As I sit here in New York, Chuck Schumer is my senator. Hakeem Jeffries is not my congressman, but he's a congressman from New York, where I live. And where are they? I mean, they're kind of operating under this old Robert's Rules of Order that doesn't exist. Josh Shapiro, great guy. I want to see him take the fight on a little bit more. I'm really tired of hearing from defenders of people like Gretchen Whitmer and Gavin Newsom that what do you expect? They have to work with the president because they need money for their states and there's no other way to get it.
Yeah.
Bullshit. I mean, they can get it by standing up for him, because the military base that she's going to get in Michigan from Trump by being nice to him is going to mean nothing when she enables and whitewashes by standing next to Donald Trump everything that we just talked about for the last 10 minutes, right? Yeah. So I don't want to hear that anymore. It's now the time to stand up. It's now the time to speak out. It's not a time to tell him to shove it. And if he has to penalize your state for it, then you go and you make that point to your constituents that you are getting screwed because of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
not
I
because of
think that's
anything I'm doing, but because of Donald Trump. So, Gavin Newsom, who I think had a lot of promise, but you want to hang out with the likes of Steve Bannon, you want to hang out with the likes of Charlie Kirk, that's great. Go work at Fox News where your ex-wife did, and I'm sure you could spend all your time talking to people like that. But the reality is that's not what anybody needs to give more amplification to. I don't think Democrats need to understand and learn from people like Steve Bannon. I think we get it. I think we understand it. And I think we need to fight against it, not learn from it.
Agree, Julie. And my biggest criticism was not him interviewing them. It was coddling them and not pushing back on them. And by the way, I forgot about Kimberly Guilfoyle. The best is yet to come. I actually forgot about her. And I think Don Jr. did too, but maybe that's not a bad thing. But anyway, Julie, before I let you go, you're so good at what you do. Can you please talk a little bit about your Substack? It's awesome, Salty Politics, and how people can sign up.
Sure. It's great. Thank you so much for asking. I launched it a little less than a year ago, and it's just grown exponentially, and I'm so grateful. It's called Salty Politics. You're right, every day, literally. It has become a second full-time job. You can find it on Substack at Salty Politics. I do a show every Wednesday with Tara Setmayer, Michelle Kinney, and JoJo from Jers, who are also people you might know.
JoJo's a friend of mine. Yeah, she's great.
Well, there you go. She and I do a show every Wednesday at noon Eastern called Over It, which you can find on YouTube. We also do something called Coffee and Conversation Saturday mornings at 10 a.m., which is pretty loose, and people just hop on and we have a conversation. Also at 10 a.m. Eastern, as I said, on Saturdays. And so it's just a great community. So if you're not on Substack, get on over to Substack or just catch us on YouTube at 12 Eastern on Wednesdays and at 10 Eastern on Saturdays.
Yeah, Tara's done this show before, and JoJo does this show all the time.
I'm sitting in Tara's room right now. She was nice enough to let me use her hotel room. We're going to
that's cool.
We're going to the Webbies together tonight, and so
that should be fun.
Tara, I got the show to do before we go to the Webbies. So she said I'm using her computer to do
tell her I said thank you, and JoJo's the best. Keep up the great work and keep getting Scott Jennings. You make him look like the clown he is sometimes, but I'll leave it at that. Anyway, Julie, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you. Have fun tonight. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That's Julie Roginsky, everybody. She is fantastic. I really enjoy her work, and I've been watching it for a very long time. She does a great job on these CNN panels. And she used to be the Tarloff of Fox News. And I didn't really want to get into this with her too much, but she is part of the lawsuit against Roger Ailes, and she had signed an NDA, so she's not allowed to talk about it. But yeah, I can say this. I believe she was one of the women that was clearly treated horribly and probably sexualized by a Roger Ailes and others. And I understand she's part of that NDA. She's not allowed to talk about it, but that's why she's not there anymore. And it's unfortunate. Jessica Tarloff's fantastic, but shows Julie, and she should be there as well. But she does a great job on these CNN panels and these other panels, and she's great. So we really do appreciate her jumping on.